Does the street believe he will have an independent voice? And on the second part of what he had to say, what is it that he wants to help the FOMC when it comes to clear understandings of the way the economy works and where monetary policy should be set?
Well, let's take those one by one. The first thing, I don't think the street sees him as an independent voice at all, which was kind of behind some of what he was saying today. And then the second part of that is that the street doesn't care at this point because he's one voice out of 19 on the committee and one vote out of 12. And there's a feeling that he isn't going to make much of a difference with 4.5 months, or not even that, on this term. Now, he could stay a lot longer and continue to be a voice for the president's views. If we want to be charitable, we could say that his views are the same as the president's, and he's not there to do the president's bidding, but he just happens to align with him, which could be true. And so as far as that goes, yeah, he's not, he can say he's not been told by the president what to do, although he certainly knows what what the president wants. Now, what he wants to do, or what he says he wants to do, is to continue to make the arguments that he made today as an economist and convince other members of the Fed to go along with his viewpoint. You noticed that Jay Powell said at the news conference last week that the real impact that anyone on the Open Market Committee has is in their ability to persuade people to their views. Now, he sort of sounded like nobody was believing in Dr. Myron's views at that meeting, but Myron seems to believe he can bring people along.
What does he view as the role of the Federal Reserve, and how is that different from other members of the Fed? I feel like we got a little bit of that philosophy today.
We did in a sense. I think he is committed to keeping inflation low. It would be hard to be an economist who supported high inflation. And he is certainly committed to keeping the labor market healthy, because much of his talk was about that. A lot of what he disagrees with is in the fiscal side. Which is not unusual for someone of his political party. And also in the philosophical side, he disagreed with the way the Fed picked up some social topics in recent years, although you can argue about how much they really did. And then the other part of it is that he has put a little bit of emphasis on the so-called third mandate of stable interest rates and stable long rates. And he said that that is something the Fed could do something about, whereas everybody on the Fed now, up to this point, has said that just flows from our other policies.
So can you explain that a little bit? Because for years I've talked about the dual mandate in the context of the Federal Reserve. Have I been getting it wrong by only focusing on stable prices and maximum employment?
No.
So what is with
it was put in there in 1977 when they added the dual mandate to the single mandate that they already had. And basically it says that you need to have stable interest rates going forward, long rates going forward. And the issue is the Fed doesn't control long rates. And so what you need is low inflation and a healthy labor market, and then you will get stable and lower long rates. Now, the argument is that they could, if they wanted to, and they have done through QE, tried to influence long rates. And he would seem to think that that is something that could be considered, which other people would disagree with.
Hey, one last thing before you go, H-1B visas. We know one of the big stories, and certainly everybody reading it on the Bloomberg, about the President Trump, his administration planning to raise the application fee for such to $100,000. It's caused some concern among skilled immigrants in the U.S., including graduate students and workers in the tech industry. What's the economic case for having them? What's the economic impact of not having them?
Well, the case for having them is you bring in some of the best and brightest people from around the world who contribute new ideas and also contribute to making U.S. companies more effective and more efficient, more productive. The the argument against it is that they can take jobs away from Americans. Now, the tech companies have always argued that there aren't enough Americans to hire doing these jobs. And I'm not an expert on that, but I think I see one sitting across the studio from me that you'll be talking to in a minute. From an economic point of view, there isn't really evidence that they take a lot of jobs or that they affect the pay of Americans who are here. But one of the questions that has come up is this another thing that the president isn't legally allowed to do? And is just doing anyway, and nobody is talking about it because Congress has the legal right to change visa costs and not the president, but it's sort of been taken as a given that he could do this. So I'm not sure where this goes from here.